A warm and hello welcome from CXOTV.news, a flagship brand under Techplus Media Group. I'm Anand Sharma from Techplus Media, your host for today's event. We have been running this webinar series titled Marketing Mondays since the lockdown started to provide a basic platform to fellow marketeers to learn from marketing gurus. Today we attempt to revisit the basics, refine our understanding, and also touch upon the trends as well as future readiness. The key agenda items for today that we plan to touch are as follows. Number one, key items to focus on from marketer perspective. Number two, how the focus is shifting and drifting. Number three, key tools to focus on from a marketer perspective. And last but not the least, what one needs to do to prepare for future. In case you want to cover us or us to cover any other topic or have a question, please mention that in the Q&A section or the chat panel. We have an eminent panel today. I'll request them to do a quick self-introduction. Our first panelist is Mr. Lavdeep Singh Walia from More Retail. Lavdeep, do you want to do a quick introduction?
Thank you, Anand. Gives me great pleasure and honor to be part of this, wonderful webinar. I think Marketing Mondays, unlike Mondays blues, are a good refresher for all of us, but very looking forward to the interaction. So I come with a very extensive FMCG come retail experience on a brand marketing, strategy, sales, operations. I have a combination of things that I've done in life. And I've worked with conglomerates as well as new age companies. So will bring whatever best I can in add value to your interaction. So thank you for having me again.
Thank you so much, Lavdeep. Our second panelist is Mr. Sandipan Ghosh from Lactalis India. Sandipan, your quick introduction, please.
Good afternoon to everyone. First of all, thanks Anand for bringing me over here in this as one of those panelists, and hopefully it will be a very interesting marketing Monday, if I have to say so in that way. I'm having almost over 2 decades of experience, specifically into food and dairy domain, and also in consumer behavior and insight generation domain. So I definitely, with Lavdeep coming in and with you, we will have a great interaction today, and I'm looking forward towards this enriching session. It's not only me talking about the marketing, what is required, but also to learn from each other, and even with our audiences, to learn, to wait forward towards their question and see how we can each other collaborate, especially in this unprecedented times of COVID. Yes,
absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you. You're welcome. So, guys, we all know that marketing is a much talked about topic. When we talk about marketing, everybody claims to understand. And forget about understanding, everybody claims to be a scholar at times. Well, what could be better than revisiting our understanding and assumptions and apprehensions from marketing gurus who have excelled in their field and successfully managed the show at their respective organizations. Let me start with Sandipan. Sandipan, what role does marketing play in strategy formulation? That's my first question to you.
Right. If you look at the entire liberalization which took place in 80s and 90s, it has completely turned around the consumption behavior of consumers in India. And then came the technology evolution, which took place late 90s and early 20s, and then this restarted and reshaping the consumer behavior in the country. And then came 2020s with this with COVIDization, if I have to say in that fashion, and it has completely changed the way we all behave, the way we all consume, the way we all see ourselves and the world, in totality. So I think first thing first, I think what is happening, I will touch upon 3 facets. One is the consumers, the second one is shoppers, and Lavdeep is the right person to also ponder upon it. And third one is as a brand owner, or as a marketeer, how we can envisage what will be the paradigm shift which has already taken place, and at the same time what is there in the future for us. In terms of consumer, if we look at it, I think it's very interesting the way consumers have discovered themselves. Many people are of course, which is are talking about safety and hygiene. Now that has become really a hygiene in our space, in consumer space. But if you look at it from the consumer perspective, I think they started they started looking themselves from a new prism, and that new prism is image backwardness. They wanted to see what is their new identity. They wanted to discover and recreate their identity first, and basis that recreation they wanted to develop the way they wanted to consume categories within their life, or they wanted to embrace changes within their lives. We are seeing that the consumers have become very frugal in terms of their consumption already. A lot of habitual consumption has already been a passe, and they are becoming more and more what should I say, more and more defined in terms of understanding that what is that is required for them, what is that is absolutely must in terms of their consumption is getting a tick mark, is getting a tick in their category list. So I think more and more thoughtful and selective consumption is something that consumers are going for. That is point one. Point two, consumers are seeking for more and more of personalization. They are becoming that what they require and the way they require is something they expect from the brand to deliver. And this is another insight which is coming out quite strongly. The third point, and which leads to a point of relevance, is basically, as a brand owner, we need to define our purpose. If we don't do that, and if the brands are only talking about the rightful things without having a true purpose, I think we will get lost from the consideration set of the consumers. So this is something which is becoming more and more, I should say, hygiene as being a marketeer. The brand has to define what is it stand for. And this stand for is not from a functional perspective, but from a social context, from a larger context. So this is very, very critical. So this is third. The fourth one, which I'm seeing, is becoming from the shopper's perspective. I think going forward, and also what we have seen in COVID times, is basically their trips to the shopping zone will decrease. So which we can see that more and more shoppers who are making frequent trips will definitely going to have once or twice in a month, which also necessarily means the basket size will increase, when they're shopping. So that's one of the trend which one can see, one can envisage. The second one, which is also very important for the shoppers, is to having more adoption of accelerated click and collect way of shopping. Whether it is their daily essentials, or even if it is something as esoteric as a premium branded fashion wear. So more and more online engagement, more and more online shopping is the key. So advent and emergence of more and more e-commerce, more and more brands reaching out to consumers directly is something we can see as a marketeer we need to take is to be aware of. That is second. Third thing, I think, as a marketeer, which is more important to understand, is the entire leverage of technology. Technology is completely redefined already during the COVID times, which we have seen. They have disrupted this entire ecosystem. But going future, that will be more of a normal behavior, which every marketer has to adapt. Which means there will be an emergence of an ecosystem where data will be the holy grail. And how ones play with the data in terms of a real-time interaction with the consumers, in terms of their cultural shift, in terms of their understanding of what they wanted to buy, what they want to wear, why they are trying to do that, will be the key for success. So leveraging and adoption of technology in the right fashion, and of course, being relevant and come with a purpose, very strong purpose-driven brand, will be the key to address to this new normal consumers.
I think you have summed it up very comprehensively, capturing all the different elements of marketing and how it aids in the strategy formulation. Lavdeep, coming to you, you are the CMO at More Retail. Can you share your focus items as a marketing head? in a day-to-day? What do you focus on?
Well, yeah, the first thing, I'm talking about some 10 years ago when I moved as a marketing manager after a sales stint. And, I went to my home and I told my mother that I got promoted and now I'm in the marketing. So she said that I don't see a difference between the sales and marketing. What will you market? You'll also do sales, right? So
Hmm.
I'm in those eras where I tried convincing her, no, the sales is different from a marketing, really. What you know of marketing is a very different. It's not about selling. It's about strategy. It's about building a product, it's building a vision, building a CVP. But I think we've jumped many places since then. And year on year, the role of a marketer has been more and more evolving, right? So, and initially the job was only to build great product and the sales will sell it. But here also now it is job to do an end-to-end solution, right? So and I think the change is happening because the consumer is, like Sandipan is also saying, the consumer is becoming a superpower, right? So
Hmm.
from an era of a supply side to a demand side is something which is completely visible now. So the advent of awareness, the advent of digital, advent of more literate consumer and more smarter consumer side is what we are witnessing right now. All of us are consumer in our senses, so we're seeing that. So the role of marketer is becoming very challenging, by the way, and this is what I try to convince my boss all the time, that we'll have to, the this last few months have become a testing ground for all of us. How agile our teams are, how agile our systems are. It's a test of a very strong ability to come back, understand, recalibrate your consumer persona and build your solutions based on that. So it has really testing times for us. What personally I have felt that last year I was building a complete digital ecosystem in the marketing side. We are predominantly a traditional marketing mix company. So we
Hmm.
were in the side of building. I was personally very, very keen to build a digital side because, like Sandeepan said, we were also witnessing a lot of personalization adoptions, lot of aspects where consumers wanted not a generalist product, so they want a recommendation which is more relevant to them than to their neighbors, right? So we were building that, but what has happened from March onwards that it has fast tracked to 5 years or maybe 10 years, I don't know. So but for us, our ability to kind of cope up what a consumer would have done 5 years hence is expecting now, right? Sitting at home using our fingers to order everything, right? So it's a very, very different world. It's not used to be. And like we all know that the shopping or a buying happens for two reasons, either for a greed or for a fear, right? So therefore I think we are seeing this a combination of both, and fear has been not very common before, which we're seeing. So I think the
Hmm.
focus is all to see how as an organization we are agile to understand this changing behaviors, at the same time we are ability to kind of respond to those changing behaviors. That's the starting point that I would talk about.
Sure, sure. So that's great. And I like, I could also see that consumer advocacy or customer advocacy is gaining a lot of importance these days within marketing as well as strategic circles. So Sandeepan, coming back to you, you being from the food industry, what are your views on the key items the marketing head should focus on?
As I said, I think it's important to understand that consumers are becoming more professionals. As you said, that that advocacy. Now, advocacy is basically the consumer advocacy is becoming more and more relevant. They will become more of a professional consumers. We talk about, and we have seen in the digital ecosystem that we have influencers, for example, but they are
Hmm.
becoming more and more semi-professionals. So what they
Hmm.
consume, what they wear, what they the way they share their experience, yes, will define and will talk about and will inspire many of the wannabes to follow them. But I think this COVID and the experience which consumers went through during this period, or rather going through this period, will completely reinvent the way they look at themselves. And more and more I see that they wanted to be unique. They wanted to be something that they wanted to be away from the flock, and they don't want to follow. They want to be there in their own space. And this individualism, rise of individualism, is something that as a marketeer we need to embrace. We need to identify and recognize it, and B, then we need to act upon it. So I think this too is very, 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 very critical. More and more, if you look at it, and as I said in my earlier statement, that the brands which has by default a legacy of being purposeful will going to succeed and being relevant in a much more easier way, versus the brands which try to tell so many right things but has no steadfast purpose will going to find it difficult in this emerging consumer landscape.
Hmm.
Advocacy, more than we have seen the celebrity endorsement, we have seen there are a lot of talking heads campaign happening, but if those are not linked with a very high order purpose, then consumers will definitely going to reject it. And that's why we have seen that, for example, in these times we are seeing almost around thousands of brands mushrooming, claiming different health and health benefits with respect to all level of personal healthcare products. But how one should differentiate, how consumers will able to differentiate that. So the brands which are having a free flow legacy, of having a very purpose driven legacy, will get an advantage versus the rest. So this is my point of view, especially in this period of time and the new normal behavior of consumers.
Sure. Would you like to elaborate, Sandeep, a little bit more on the individualism aspect that you shared? Because I always felt that a consumer is always an individual, right? So you target them with the target group, mindset, but then his choices are individual, which are governed by XYZ, coordinates. So any further thoughts you want to share a little bit deeper into the individual theory?
No, the individualism is always there, as you rightly said, but they are becoming much more. Personalization is something which is embracing the individualism. And is more and more. For example, I will tell you from the dairy category. When I look into different insights of the consumers in India, I see that there are consumers who are more willing to be health conscious, and they are defining themselves that, okay, during my health regime I need more protein. So is there something, an alternative which I get through a dairy source which has more protein and that can help me to attain that level? And we see different brands, including ours, are innovating in that area, in that space, to target those consumers who wants to have more of protein, through dairy source. And then you tailor-made products to to ensure that you reach out to those customers. So similarly, we have seen plenty of consumers who are wanted to get back to that artisanal products, the one which they believe that their forefathers used to make it, the way they used to make it. They wanted to experience those, and they prefer brands to come and address. For example, again from dairy space, we have seen like how Epigamia, for instance, or there are many other brands, like including our brands like Tirumala or Anik, are working in terms of coming out with traditional products and try to cater to their needs. But this is also in a personalization space. So there are plenty such examples that one can give, but this is something which will and which is currently will going to be the new normal.
Sure, sure. I have an interesting question for you, Sandeepan, but I'll come back to you. Let me just, there was one question which has been, in my mind to ask Lavdeep. Lavdeep, how's the consumer adoption and behavior changing post COVID-19? You being at the, forefront, you can answer it better.
Sure. Well, I think there are stages of consumer behavior changes that we are seeing, and I think by now we've seen 2 or 3 different, since March. One thing which has been common thread across is the concept of familiarity and proximity. So if you are familiar with a retailer or are familiar with a brand, the likeliness of you to trust that is much higher. And what we are seeing clearly that people are not looking at experimenting right now. They are avoiding experiment, and and for an obvious reasons, because right now I think very critical is to kind of trust what you've been using and stuff like that. And the second part, of course, we all know, is the whole convenience aspect, so which is the proximity. So we are seeing this is very high, and we have multiple businesses. We have on e-commerce, online, we have the small format, which is the name stores, and we also have a large box which is the mall stores, right, the destination stores. And we've clearly seen when the where we are present for many years now, in the neighborhood market, those certainly people have a much higher adoption versus when you are in the high street or in the malls. Therefore, these are two clearly aspects that are coming on. But what is really changing is that first half, as we call a new normal, that is where, which was 100% proximity. People, it was immaterial, and anyways we were not able to get products to kind of their satisfaction because the supply chain was so broken. So our job was to kind of get products on the shelf. Their job was to kind of get out of the house and or order from online or whatever, and just be able to kind of survive the pantries, the kitchens, right? So therefore that was our first task. And the second, which we're calling right now as a semi-normal, is where now people are doing a revenge shopping, right? So now going into buying things which are bed sheets, clothes, and moving into a lifestyle, because see, this is not a normal consumer behavior, right? You cannot restrict a human being like this, right? So, and for many of us, the shopping is also a good emotional recharge, right? So you feel more satisfied when you earn and you burn, right? Otherwise there's no point. So we are also seeing in last month and a half, there is a lot of revenge shopping happening in the lifestyle categories, in the beauty categories. So people are, and what was the definition of essentials, right? Essential was only, milk, bread, atta, chawal, dal, etc. Now the essentials are many different products. The bed sheets are essential, the other things which were not, the clothes are essentials right now. Even the profile of clothes have changed to more of a home and casual and informal and stuff like that, but those have become more essential now. And similarly, the many other categories that we are seeing has becoming in, like bicycles are becoming very essential now, and things like those. So we are seeing this, and therefore I think to kind of pinpoint the permanent change, I don't see personally that there will be a permanent change in the behavior. The only thing that I personally believe, that they will certainly be a channel agnostics. So you would certainly want, basis on your availability, basis on your ability to cope up with the fear and things like those, you will want to order from wherever you want. If you want to physically go out, you're more comfortable in certain part of the month or a year or a day or whatever, you will personally go and do it, because that's your normal behavior, right? You can't just change because of this thing. And but when you're hard pressed with the time and you believe that there's unnecessary shopping trip will just cause more issue, then you perhaps have a chance also option to order online. So I think brands, at least for people like us, we need to be a channel agnostic. We should be available all across the channels of where customer would want, rather than where we can offer. So I think that's going to be a big part of what we will do in next.
Sure. So that was very good. What you mentioned about proximity and familiarity, that made a lot of sense to me. So thanks, Lavdeep. Sandipan, coming back to my question, would you like to share what are the new approaches, Sandipan, which marketers have adopted or are adopting to reach out to the customers or customer base?
One of the emerging channels which we are seeing it is direct to consumers. Direct to consumers is becoming more and more I should use the word in phase for brand owners or the manufacturers, because somehow I have a feeling that even the consumers started believing the products which are coming directly from the manufacturers or from the farm is more trustworthy, they are having reposing more faith and confidence in the offering. So direct to consumers is becoming more and more relevant as a channel. The second one is, of course, as Lavdeep was also mentioning, yes, there will be omni-channel presence of channels. However, e-commerce will be a big ticket surge which we can see, which has happened. COVID has actually helped the entire behavior of the consumers to disrupt completely towards that. So e-commerce is another important channel which we are seeing that it is growing. And the third one is what to extend to what Lavdeep said, is the proximity. So the neighborhood kirana stores will exist and will continue to exist, but I think that the concept of hyperlocal channelization will be the key, will be the future. And thanks to Jio, they have already started that JioMart, and this we can see that will be more and more adaptive and adapted as we go forward. So I think three broad broad pathway to consumers which are emerging. One is of course the direct to consumers, the second is e-com online, and the third one is the more and more your neighborhood stores will become a more hyper local stores where bigger brands or organized retailers like like for example Aditya Birla or right for example More or Reliance or many others will going to adapt to that this trend. So these are the three broad, channels which I see is the future. Apart from obviously, there will be no non-existence of the rest of those traditional channels. They will continue to be there, but they will going to adapt to this hyper-local format very, very fast.
They have to be there. I completely am with you. Because and as Lavdeep was also putting it, it becomes quite essential at times to venture out, and go in the market and shop for yourself. And many times you just don't go with an itinerary or an agenda or to buy items. You just go for with a wish list that okay, let me see what I go for today, right? So I think the brick and mortar would be there for time to come, but then yes, with a different dimension. Sandipan, coming back to my next question to you, and it's a follow-up question. How do you think technology will shape the future, and how it would be leveraged for, let's say, digital or social or contextual marketing?
Yeah, but see, technology already has completely disrupted in many fold the way consumers shop and the way the brands are reaching out to consumers. So you can see a complete convergence of these two are happening in a big time. Okay, now coming to being a marketeer, I think it's important for us to adapt quite fast about this changing platform. So, many of the organizations, including ours, we adopted something what we call digital nervous center. The digital nerve center, the DNC, what we call it, is basically a very sophisticated. It's a combination of IoT and AI, which predicts consumers' behavior in a real time, so that we are able to mobilize resources. We understand and identify the shift in trends if it is at all there, and if it is happening, how I can reach out at the right time, which is your contextual marketing or programmatic marketing. So this is something that we as a brand owners are adopting, and this is something will be the future. More and more, I think, in terms of technology adoption, in terms of creating such platform on a real-time basis, will make eventually the manufacturers or the brand owners always being staying ahead of the curve. That's point one. Point two is also about the metrics. It's also about the analytics, because it is very important that how this so-called ecosystem 2.0 is shaping up. Because where I mentioned initially that the data is the holy grail in this system, but also when it comes to analytics, we need to completely redefine the algorithm pattern, because the set analytics what we have seen so far in place is based on historical data point with certain level of consumer behaviors which they track over a period of time, but that has completely changed now. It's completely disrupted. So the entire priorities of businesses with respect to this analytics and leveraging the technology to help to reassess and reboot this analytics will be the key driver going forward. So that's the second point which I wanted to mention. And as you rightly said, contextual marketing will be the key going forward. We have seen about content driven marketing. We have seen that how brands create conversations and how through conversations brands are seated in, and then now we're seeing it's programmatic marketing, and that is very, 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 very key. So this is something which I believe is something that more and more brands we should and of course I can see it's happening, that we're going to leverage upon, because staying relevant at the right time at the right point moment will be the key to be at the top of mind and to be a part of the consideration set from the consumers.
No, absolutely, absolutely. Lavdeep, would you like to share any use case or any example of how technology can augment the marketing efforts in the future for us?
Yeah, I can share with you a very interesting examples, right? So nobody can deny the power of technology that it can bring for you, right? So as in the entire organization, and that's a stated truth. But the challenge is that how do you as an organization leverage that technology, right? And I have personally seen, talking to so many colleagues in the industry, of spending millions of dollars but not getting the money for the buck, because technology can also carry you in a different dimension, not give you exactly what you want. So I think the step one is to really kind of arrive at what do you want to do with the technology, and technology cannot come before your strategy, right? So it has to be your strategy for the business and what do you want to use technology for, and then you build your tools. So and I'm giving a personal example. So I have used technology to create a single view of customers, which I never had before, right? So it is helping me to have a monitor them on a live based scenario and see what are they communicating about me as a brand, what are they talking to me about, what are they worried about, what are they happy about. My NPS comes live again on my dashboard. So it helping me to kind of see consumer in one view, and we have democratized that and made sure that everybody in the organization, right from stores to the MD, see the consumer view in a single frame. Very important to have everybody together so that we are solving for this one consumer, not for a multiple consumer. So that has helped us. Secondly, really, it's actually the power of digital is unleashed when we started reaching out to them directly. And analytics, like the question that you asked, analytics and digital are actually hand in hand. They coexist. You cannot separate them out. So use of digital has actually made sure that from a 70% media was actually from a traditional newspapers and prints and all that, right? Radio, traditional, which has come down to now 30%, and balance is going into this targeted media. So my CRM has become very, very effective. I can actually predict the dropouts uh, by the rank. I can say that this customer is ranked one in terms of winning back my dropout because of the data that we have and because of the digital that we're able to kind of predict their behavior. Similarly, we can actually look at when is the next purchase going to happen. We can predict that. Okay, then we can communicate to them directly, right? So we can geo-target it. We can reach out to them directly basis on what they bought, what they've not bought, what are they missing basket. So certainly this has given you more power, right? But the only caution that I would urge to everybody, and I have gone personally in various phases of building this, you have to decide your strategy first. You have to pick up small pilots and do it, because digital can carry you over really far, and then you realize that you're not even reached 10% of where you wanted to, and spend and burn a lot of money. Okay, so that's how I'm using it.
I think you wanted to say that perhaps digital can overwhelm you, right? And you always need to see it as an enabler rather than the end goal. That since XYZ is doing this, I also want to do this. That should not be the end goal.
Absolutely.
But just curious, are you guys also doing something on augmented reality or those kind of things, virtual reality?
My personal view of AI is not very great. Okay, one, I think the ML and AI are a good talking points in these, and I've been also talking about this in these discussions. But the real juice of those will happen over a period of time. We all are in the learning curve of this. So far, I think what we've got. By the way, there are 7% companies in the world who have successfully executed digital strategy. Forget about AI. AI is the next step. Okay, so I think there is a time lag between, because this is ultimately machine, and machine can only learn when the humans learn, right? And it takes a little bit of time. Things like chatbot and all of that has natural learning languages. All of that is much easier to do. But really predicting a behavior through AI, I think it's a slightly ahead of time so far. At least my personal view of that. So I think first thing.
Coming back to my next question to you, Lavdeep, and perhaps you need to step back and take a wholesome view as to what would be the long-term and short-term tactics in marketing in order to succeed. It's a heavy question, so please take as much time as you want, because I know it's a large question I've asked.
No, I have answered it multiple times to my management. So this is an important question. I mean, and it is again an individual dependent and industry dependent. I think combination will work, not one. Step one, I think, is to kind of build a structure in the team which is able to predict the changes in the behavior much more faster than it was doing earlier. If you were listening to consumer once in a month, start listening to them once in a week, because the changes are as frequent as this. That's the step one. Once you listen to the consumer and you see that there's a significant implication to your business, I think you have to start putting up small pilots to start, testing the response that you will provide to the customers. And therefore, it is critical for you to set up a seamless structure between listening to getting a pilot one done in one market. I think those are the processes that you have to build. So I think, nutshell, you have to create an agile organization. That's the step number one. Step number two, I think we need to look at the clear aspects of how, as a brand, we are able to solve for a convenience. And I think convenience is going to become a very, very critical factor, at least in the short term part, where people will still be okay to kind of give away the cost, but the convenience will play a very big role. And we each of the brands have to figure out what convenience really means to a consumer in their industry, right? So sometimes, for an automobile, it's about coming to your home, coming to your society, and then doing all that, right from the documentation to kind of whole process on buying has to cut short to very less visits, and mostly it should happen virtually, things like those. For brands like us, we have to be make sure that the consumer is being able to order from all the channels possible. So we'll have to make it brand which is omni-channel, and that's very important, right? And so on and so forth. So I think the convenience will play an important role. Over and above that, at a category level, we'll have to see which are the categories which are deeply impacted because of the economical heartburns, and those are the things that he has started hitting the brands more than and the consumers, because there was a time 3 months ago where value and savings were not as important as it is right now as we speak, because people are fearful of their jobs, people are fearful about their businesses, consistency increments are not happening, and there is a fear because we don't know where it's going to end, right? So I think people habitually will go towards saving more, and spend thrift is not going to exist. So we'll have to make sure that how do we kind of solve for that for a customer, right? So how do I make sure that the products that I sell, can I make sure that without compromising on the quality, I can afford to give them at a cost where they like. So all of those things will become, I think, from a long-term point of view, short-term solve for a convenience, long-term solve for a convenience plus value. I think this is how I would like to address this.
As a marketeer, how do you see your role evolving in the post-COVID scenario?
Well, I have become an experimental. There is I have become a laboratory of testing, by the way, these times. And as we speak, anytime, any day, we have 2 to 3 to 4 different pilots in different part of the country going on. I think step one, I would say this is a slow death of a traditional ways of marketing. Okay. The traditional way of looking at customer, traditional way of analyzing your media mixes. This situation, if you are not digital savvy, if you're not technology, if you're not comfortable with technology, if you're not comfortable with being experimentative, I think these are the times when you will face a lot of issue as a marketer. And there is no book written. Kotler has not written that during COVID this is going to happen and stuff like that. These are all new age guys will learn, and but none of us have actually undergone during our management days, right? Neither my professor ever taught me about how to handle such situations. So therefore, I think it's our ability to predict consumer with the technology, and therefore comfort with technology will play a very big role. Your ability to keep sticking to your strengths, at the same time being experimentative in a short form, in a smaller areas where the impact is low, but you are also testing, you're incubating, as they call it, in the background on various models that will work. I think that's going to be very important. Just to tell you, in the month of April, when this thing happened, and there was the first lockdown from 24th of March, right? For that 2-3 months, my customer acquisition cost on digital was as high as $100 plus, right? For a grocery, this is very, very heavy. Right now, it's come down to under $25. So, and if we would not have been doing those small packets, we would never reach to that $25. So it's important. And then in that reaching out, and there was a journey, right? So which journey otherwise without COVID would have taken 5 years, that taken actually 5 months. But you'll have to start incubating back of your mind and start testing your ideas.
You said experimenting, incubating, and all that stuff. These are all, I'll say, necessary words. When I say words, I mean the actions behind it as well. But then these are all good to have once things are pretty stable, right? All these things cost money, right? And money is a constraint in these times, and you don't experiment when you are struggling for your survival. How do you balance it out? Because one, you have to ensure that your operations is running, right? And then at the same point of time, you rightly said, unless you experiment, unless do some sort of incubation, you don't know as to what benefits you can get from all those things. So how do you balance it out?
See, the whole aspect is about prioritizing this well. Okay, and in the current scenario, when you have a situation which is unprecedented and the speed is like never before, it's critical to kind of put certain resources earmarked only to do those pilots. And pilots are something that does not cost as much as what you do otherwise, right? So therefore, you should, as a marketer, you should all what is the marketer job? Marketer job is to keep finding ways to reach out to customer, right? In create demand for the brand, create demand for the product, right? So if your classical models are not playing to the core, then you'll have to, of course, bring the new models. Otherwise, you will never be able to communicate the way you want to, right? So therefore, as a marketer, you take a hard call of keeping out time, money, resources to do that part, and has to be equally important than surviving in the current model. Plus, I think you should play.
Sandeep, can you hear the?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah, please go ahead, Lavdeep. Sorry, I missed you for a minute.
Plus,
Yeah.
plus I think you have to play on your strengths, and that's where I say that strengths, which means that which are the most time tested, consumer certified models. Let me tell you one thing very interesting. I think this has taught me nothing, and this would not have happened if the COVID would not have happened, by the way. That I today measure every communication. Earlier, I never used to measure, the efficacy of print ad. I've never used to measure efficacy to the extent which we should be. Now I can tell you sitting here what is how many customers. Of course, there's a random sample size, but it's you can't do it for the entire universe of customers that you reached out to. But it gives me a fair bit of an idea about which media is effective in which part of the world, which part of the catchments, and which customer. By the way, I can also predict that this customer gets influenced by SMS, and this customer gets influenced by automated call. This customer will only come when I reach to him through press ad. This customer will only come when I will do a BTL activity in his catchment, in his nearest area. So I was never able to do that. Now this is also helping me to optimize my spend, which is going into the incubation. But you have to take those calls. It's very important. Otherwise, yeah, these are very critical calls, right? So you'll have to take those calls.
Absolutely. So that's interesting, and perhaps I'll come back to you, Lavdeep, as a last question on this, as to what do you foresee, which marketing segments are picking up as vis-a-vis others. Sandipan, I'll take one question from you, which I asked you before losing you. You mentioned a couple of times about direct to consumer. So if you want to elaborate on that a little more.
Yeah, it's direct to consumer, especially, it will be an emerging channel, and we can see many of the brands across are leveraging those, including ours. Now, before we get into direct to consumers, I think it's important that, which Lavdeep just mentioned, is how you create the digital architecture before you actually create the pathway to reach to consumers directly. What does it mean? It means that in a simplistic way, that, how you create an interface where you can give consumers the power as an UI experience to choose what they need to choose, to buy what they need to buy at whatever time, at whatever quantity, at whatever frame of mind they wanted to pick it up. That is something that is very important, and how you marry those with your backend infrastructure, digital infrastructure and technology, which will and here comes the role of AI in a big way, to plug their behavioral usage pattern and marry that and ensure that which is the nearest location through which you will able to route this their order. Now here two things is important. One, which I mentioned, is the digital infrastructure which we need to create, which has to be extremely robust and which is time and tested. Okay. Second, how you create an UI experience for the consumers, for the end users, so that they have an experiential what should I say, sweet spot while they are using the particular site to select, to see, and to ensure whatever they need to buy, married with a very robust payment infrastructure in place, which will make the ease of payment as well as enough firewalls to ensure that their monies are protected. And third, which is very important, is that the last mile delivery. At whichever time, at whichever slot they wanted to have that, how as an organization, how as a brand owner, we are ensuring that there is no friction. They get it at that right moment of time. I think this will be the key, in terms of having a success rate for direct to consumers. But as an emergence of a channel, I can tell you for sure, traditional channel will be there to exist, but more and more brands will surely going to save that extra money rather than passing on that margin to the middleman, or so-called to the traditional trade or to the distributors. They wanted to go and reach out to consumers directly, where consumers, and because it's a win-win model, because consumers will have the power to choose, and the brand owners will have the power to not only push their portfolio, but also do a lot of trial generation or create a lot of innovation lab to work along with the consumers to develop product which actually they seek for. So I think that way, I can see this as an emerging, very well established channel going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel with the emergence of technology, we can be in more touch with our consumer, right? We can hear from them louder, right? We can take action which are more specific, right? So that makes absolute sense. Moving on to my next question or last question to you, Lavdeep, which I said, based on your experience, what sort of marketing mediums are picking up or are taking us have an advantage over others?
Well, see, certainly the
Lavdeep?
personalized. Hello, can you hear me? Certainly the
Yeah.
personalization, which is reaching out through on their mobile phones, is going to become a very, very critical part, and it will continue to become better and better. I think right now the experience is very much limited to only SMSs and in-app notification. I think we'll all, as a marketers and as a technologists, we'll have to figure out a way to reach more effectively without intruding too much. So I think as a strategically, I would feel that going to individual customer basis on her need at the time of really when she requires is going to be a big aspect. So reaching directly on mobile phone, certainly through CRM or whatever, will become very important part. Having said that, I personally also feel that we have a mix of a high technology savvy plus a newspaper readers plus a TV watcher. So you will have a combination of things. Of course, depend on the TG that you target to. I think all the medias will coexist. The only thing that you will see a much larger share of the media mix coming through personalization and digital. Certainly, there's no two doubts about it. Unlike the year ago media, where you had a very heavy focus on TV and the prints. But we will see how, because right now the experience on mobile phone is not really great, I would say. I mean, still we have to find a way, like Sandipan was talking about the whole thing around UI UX. I think those still needs to be worked more, because we are still heavily dependent on traditional, right? We have cracked the innovations in print. We have cracked the beautiful emotional advertising on TV. But I think on the digital side, we still some time to go, and therefore those tools will be important. But I think going forward, digital certainly become more and more important. Advocacy will be another part which will be over and above what you do, and community participation. All of them become very, very critical for mass brands. Like the D2C thing that Sandipan again was talking about is very important, but of course it will come with its own challenges, because consumer also is looking for convenience. So if every brand has their own D2C channel to kind of offer, then they will have to go to each channel and then buy. So we'll have to see how this seamlessly come together. So all of those things will have a interesting time to see how things evolve, but certainly the role of technology will become very critical.
No, Lavdeep, I think to come in, Anand, here, very interesting point what he said. Maybe that will give us an emergence of D2C aggregators. We will see a lot of D2C aggregators, getting emerged.
Yeah, this can actually take away the marketplace model completely. You're right.
Absolutely, they can redefine it completely.
Correct. Very good. Yes.
So when you say B2C aggregators, if you want to elaborate a little bit more for our audience, Sandipan?
No, we can see there are a lot of delivery aggregators. We are seeing like Swiggy's or Zomato's of the world coming in and picking up from different point of locations of different brands which exist. We are seeing there are a lot of transport aggregators happening. So similarly, we will see a lot of direct to consumers
So
aggregators like.
he's politely saying Amazon will not be there. So that's what the answer is.
I can't say that now.
Yeah, I think
Yeah. But that's right. Yeah, absolutely.
absolutely. Yeah. So very well, good points. I think we are already on top of the hour. But I feel, we always feel confident about the basics, right? However, there should be a continual revalidation of the same to ensure concurrence and relevance. More so when the world order is going through a massive change, right? Whether at personal front or the fierce market battlefield, one must show flexibility to change as required. Well, these unprecedented times have forced us to recalibrate many of the beliefs and assumptions. And as Lavdeep was putting it, proximity and familiarity are the new normal. We have heard about vocal for local mantra. I'm confident that you have enjoyed this enriching session as much as I did. Moreover, it's always beneficial to hear from the leaders directly. You can watch the past webinars on www.cxotv.news. I thank each one of you for taking out time and attending this event and wish you all the very success during these challenging times. As a parting note, I can share that Techplus Media is doing its bit in making India self-reliant under Atmanirbhar Bharat Abhiyan. With this, we'll call it a day. Thanks once again to Lavdeep and Sandipan for enriching us with their thoughts.
For more updates from CXO TV, please like and subscribe to our channel.